Howdy, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's Seaside chat. I'm so excited about this chat. We are going to learn about the Texas Sea Grant exhibit that is currently at the Bush Library in College Station, Texas. My name is Chloe Dannenfeltzer, and I'll be the MC for this chat. And I'm going to introduce our guests. So first we have Mary Anna Murphy, who is with MAM Exhibit Design. And then we have Beth Remsburg, who is with Brands Who Leap. And then Texas Sea Grant's Sarah Carney, who is our communications manager. So thank you so much for coming to this chat, ladies. Yeah, let's get this started. I'm so excited to ask you all these questions. So why don't we just start off by, if y'all could introduce yourselves and explain your specialty, that would be great. Mariana, would you like to go first?
Sure. Mariana Murphy. My specialty is designing museum exhibits, and in the museum exhibit design world, there's so many different talents and different ways that you can go. But my specialty is in doing research and design.
Awesome. What about you, Beth?
Hi, Beth Remsburg with Brands That Leap. I am primarily a graphic designer. However, I got introduced to environmental graphic design or exhibit design about 6 years into my career, and I was hooked, so to speak. And so mostly branding, graphic design, and typography, layout, image creation, etc.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Sarah Carney. I'm the communications manager here at Texas Sea Grant, and I am the lead for the communications team. And we do all sorts of things. We do our magazine, we do social media, and we've done some help with the library exhibit, which is why I'm here.
Awesome. So how did you guys get into the field of museum design?
Beth, you go first.
Well, yeah, as I said, a few years into my career, I was hired by a branding firm that also their niche was environmental graphic design or exhibitry. And I just really fell in love with designing for experiences and designing in the third dimension, if you will. So yeah, that was kind of my entree into exhibit design.
And my major in college was teaching woodshop. So I learned how to think in 3D and how to understand how things get built in different materials and things. And so I got in through that way by volunteering at a museum. I was on the board of directors, and I started volunteering there more often. And they said, if we paid you, would you be here more regularly? And that was 20 years ago. And I have taken on lots of different exhibits and projects since then and learned a lot through each one.
That's awesome. Oh my goodness. While Sarah answers, I do have some slides that we're going to show our audience so they can kind of get an idea of what we're talking about. But yeah, Sarah, tell us about how you got into this.
Well, I am not at all a museum designer. I am a writer and editor by trade, and I've had various communications jobs where I've done, things like photography and videography, none of which are museum design. So, and that's why we reached out to Mariana and Beth, because we needed that expertise. And for this, I was really the Sea Grant point of contact, and just facilitating and getting information for the exhibit.
That's awesome. So for our audience, here's part of our exhibit. Here we have our lovely guest speakers, and then on the far right is Texas Sea Grant's director, Dr. Plotkin. So I'll really quick, before I ask the next question, we can show where'd it go? We have a video of the entrance to our exhibit. So here you go. You see that. Excellent, so pretty. But yeah, next question. So how did you guys get involved with this exhibit, and how, did you know about Texas Sea Grant before this?
I did. My husband was a Texas Sea Grant researcher when he was in graduate school.
Wow.
So he was on the Bryan Mound project. So I knew about it. And also our daughter is friends with Dr. Plotkin, and they were talking one day on Texas A&M campus, and Dr. Plotkin mentioned that she was going to do this exhibit, and Mary Pearl Moit said, "Oh, my mom, my mom, my mom." And so I talked to Sarah and I talked to Dr. Plotkin, and then I said, there are exhibit designers who are far closer to you than I am in St. Petersburg, Florida. And so I introduced her to Drew Patterson. And go ahead, Beth, the rest is your story.
Yeah, Drew Patterson and Pony Allen and I had worked on some exhibits, one of which was at the Alamo. And so we met Dr. Plotkin and Sarah and talked through everything. And they both decided that that they had too much on their plate. And so I was introduced to Mariana, and the two of us we clicked and we seemed like a good match. Our skill sets balance each other really well. And yeah, so we worked with Sarah very closely, and the rest is history.
We couldn't have done it
That's
without Sarah.
awesome. Awesome. Here, wait, I'm gonna change the background slide really quick. Sarah, would you like to answer this next question? How you got involved with this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it really started with my interview at Sea Grant. I've worked at Sea Grant for a little over 3 years now. And when I came to interview, Dr. Plotkin, who's our director, she mentioned to me in the interview, this is Sea Grant's 50th anniversary, and we're going to have an exhibit, and it's going to be all these great things. And, at the time I had been in other organizations that had anniversaries, and it was celebrations, like maybe we had a little party or a little get together and bought a few items with our logo on it. And so I thought, oh, that's fine, that this, won't be that huge of a thing. And then I quickly realized how big of a deal it was, and how much we could do, and how much history Sea Grant had to tell. So it was something that quickly grew, and I will say, the extent of my museum design experience was a single class that we had when I was in grad school. In my master's program, we had one class where a museum designer talked to us, and it was something I never thought that that I'd get to help with an exhibit or help facilitate or work more with museum designers. And I'm so glad that I got to with this experience.
Oh, that's awesome. Sorry.
No, that's good. That's it.
Very, very cool. Here we have another quick video we can kind of pepper in. This is the timeline that, like Sarah said, Sea Grant has a very rich history. So here's a video of whenever you first walk in. You can see they have like a really cool timeline starting with the 70s and then to the current day.
So what we did is we built a set of L-shaped walls that covered each decade, that covered kind of sort of the same level of topics, so that as you just march down the timeline, like marching down the decade.
Ah, so cool. Very, very cool. So can y'all walk us through the process of how y'all designed, how you made this whole exhibit?
We started off with an outline that we developed with Sarah and Dr. Plotkin, and then also Dr. Plotkin was working with Wendy Gordon, who is a science writer who took all of the decades of research and interpreted and sussed out the most important bits of research so that we didn't have to do that. And it was frankly a wonderful exercise that she did. So we were able to focus in on the main bits of research, and also we were able to pull out, or she was able to pull out, one single word that most typified the research done during that decade, that kind of helped us wrap our arms around it.
Oh, that's so cool. Very, very cool.
But then Beth did her amazing graphics because Sarah did all the writing and we all kind of jointly edited all the text after Wendy turned it over to us. And then we decided how the timeline would look and what types of information were on the timeline. We wanted it to be events that had a potential impact on this health of the coast. So that's why we like the number of oil rigs. Those have a potential impact on the health of the coast should you have a spill.
Awesome.
So that's how we chose stuff for the timeline. Plus, we also, just to show the large number of research papers that Texas Sea Grant wrote, we listed each single one of them, every single one of them on every single decade that were done. And Beth, talk about how much detail that was and how long that took you to.
Yeah, I have to say this is the most content I've really ever had to work with for an exhibit. So I mean, the stories are amazing. It was, you know, mostly on Sarah to determine, you know, what were the most important stories. The timeline specifically, you can see it right there. It's really kind of textural, like in the background. But if you did want to read all of the research papers titles, they are there.
Wow.
And they are in chronological order from when you first enter the exhibit, you know, down to the end of this wall that you can see right here. So it just shows the sheer volume of research that has been developed over the last 50 years.
Absolutely. I'm gonna see if I can find another picture of the timeline because it's so impressive. It's beautiful.
It was so much detail to wrangle from Sarah's perspective and from Beth taking the detail and laying it out in a visually pleasing format. And then from Wendy doing the research that she did in order to help us get all these papers all tied up.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah, and I think what Wendy did, I mean, it was just a massive time save for us. And yeah, I'm so grateful for what she did, you know, in terms of distilling the research, because you look at those sort of lists that were on the timeline sort of in the background. I mean, that's all the stuff that she was looking through to determine, you know, all these. Yep, exactly.
There we go, sorry.
And also what's fun about that, I know we sort of grappled with how to handle that because there was just so much, and then at the same time we didn't want to leave anyone out and make anyone feel like their research wasn't important. But what I found that was interesting is that I've gone back and visited the exhibit a few times with people, and I'll see people like kind of looking through and going, oh, there's this subject, I didn't know that Sea Grant funded that. And I always love to see what people pull out, and that's, to me, kind of a fun little detail that we have in here.
That is so cool. Can y'all tell us about, you kind of touched on it, but more, can y'all kind of expound on the collaboration that it took to create an exhibit like this?
So we met every Friday morning for over a year, for at least an hour, if not sometimes a little longer. This was my Friday morning family. And we talked about progress and process and what needs to be next and what are we missing, and let's look at these photos that could possibly support this topic. Oh, you've got more. Oh, let's find some graphics or some sort of a table or a chart or something that would help support this topic. So a lot of times when you design exhibits, the visual is just as important as the content. So being able to reinforce what you want visitors to walk away knowing.
Awesome.
And there's so many players in this that, you know, our team, of course, and then other Sea Grant specialists that we met with, you know, together, materials, imagery was a big part of it, with which Sarah, you know, was the first filter on finding those. And she's like, oh, I have a photo of that. And it, you know, it might've been a print from back in the 70s, and she would scan those for us if they weren't already scanned. And then all the way through fabrication, I want to give a shout out to Benny Thomas, who they fabricated and installed this museum fabrication group out of Little Elm, Texas. I had worked with him before, and they were just incredible. And then the staff at the Bush Library, Jay Patton and others. Yeah, it really is a team effort from the very beginning through, you know, now.
And appreciate the Sea Grant specialists who helped us, because this was kind of a lot of outside their wheelhouse. Why do you want a shrimp net? Why do do you want the floats and the doors and everything? No, we're just making a fake walkthrough. But I don't understand. So it was interesting. I don't know, working with the Sea Grant specialist to kind of help try and share our vision for what we wanted the folks to do. For instance, the oysters, you've got a photo.
Oh yes, I'll pull that up.
And we talked to, is it Mario?
Yes, Mario.
Yes, he gathered up this big old crate of oyster shells and shipped them off to the fabricator, Benny Thomas at Little Elm, Texas. And they actually embedded these into a wall, which I thought it adds some texture and some feely parts to it.
Yes, let me share that part because I love this part. Carrie, can y'all see it?
So some things that, you wouldn't necessarily think would be a big task or a big deal, but finding a color, like a paint color to create that sand texture, to embed all of those oyster shells was, we spent time on that. And, it's every little detail matters. And their artist worked on the placement of that, and we looked at it and they proofed it to us. They sent us photos, and Mariana was like, oh, we want more of this or less of then, and yeah, it just every single item, every texture we pay attention to. So a lot of hands, a lot of minds, a lot of talents go into this.
Mm-hmm. I believe it. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous exhibit. Y'all touched on the TEDs. I can pull that picture up as well, just because it's so much fun. Wait, that's the seafood one. Here we go. This is the TED they were talking about. So this is a turtle excluder device. Actually, Sarah, you should tell them more about that because I don't want to get it wrong.
I think this was an item that, it's almost like one of the centerpieces, of this exhibit. There are a few things I guess could be considered a centerpiece, but this is definitely one of them. And I think in some of our first meetings, we had said, wouldn't it be so cool if we could have a TED that people could walk through like they're a turtle and really understand how turtles move through these shrimp nets. And that was like our pie in the sky dream. We almost didn't think that was actually going to happen, and it sure did. And I go through, whenever I go visit, I see people walking through and just having such a good time with it and gaining a better understanding. But this was a challenge because, at the time, I didn't really understand how TEDs work, and it was a learning process for me. And I think I had to just send Mariana and Beth to some of our specialists and say, look, I don't want to get this wrong. And these guys know exactly how these work better than anybody. So I'd suggest you talk to them. And we went from there. Do y'all want to add anything to that part of the process?
Well, in talking to the scientists, turtles either go up out of the top of it or down through the bottom of it, neither of which were possible with gravity in this exhibit. So we had to have people exclude themselves to the sides. And in trying to talk to scientists about how we're going to do this, because still trying to understand it, they were like, no, you either go up or you go down. So we had some chats. And actually, Beth and I were in Galveston, Texas, doing research for this exhibit, and I saw some people that I know from NOAA, from the Southeastern Regional Office, at the same restaurant. And I went up and I barged in on their meal and asked them, so how do TEDs really work? And they explained it well enough for me to understand, basically.
Oh,
I have to, sorry, Chloe.
Oh, no, you go ahead. I was just saying that's so cool.
No, and the thing that I think might be one of the most interesting or funny stories about this, and I probably have a few little videos of it, but Benny and his team hanging this net was a little bit of a challenge, to to say the least. And I think Mariana, didn't you left before it was finished?
I had to leave, yes.
And she had a flight back. This was on Friday afternoon. We installed this in a week, which was no small task.
Right.
And she's like, Beth, just I'm trusting you. I'm trusting Benny. Just make this happen. And but we got her done. We got it hung, and it was.
There's not a blueprint for most of the work most of the kind of work that Beth and I do. They're all one-offs. They're all individual things. And for Benny and his crew to figure out how to take this 50 yards of net and make it look like this and sort of look like it's coming off of a shrimp boat close enough so people get the idea that it's hung from outriggers. It was, they really did a great job.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if our viewers can tell, but there's lights coming down to make it look like you're underwater. That was the goal, right? It's so cool. And we have a little video of what it looks like if you're in the net. And I just think that was such a fun touch.
Yeah, that was the other thing that, we're creating this illusion of something that you do have to use your imagination a little bit, or just get the sense of what this would be like, the turtle experience going through that. And, I love that it's somewhat abstract, and it is really just kind of creating that illusion. If we could have water, which it's not allowed, and we had a lot of other ideas that, for one reason or another, like Mariana was saying, none of this everything is unique in an exhibit design, and most often it's never been done before. So a lot of trial and error, a lot of hoping that it works, crossing our fingers, praying, and and at the end of the day, we made it work, and I think it's amazing. I really like Sarah was saying, it is definitely one of the centerpieces of the exhibit.
Absolutely. I believe this is a video of someone walking through it so they can see what it's like. Oh, it's so cool. Ta-da! And usually you go off to the right, correct?
Right, correct.
Yeah, very cool.
Went online to the NOAA website. Turtle excluder devices are also one-offs, but there's certain design parameters that they need to follow so that they're the right size and stuff. And so that's how that bar, oval bar thing that you see at the end came to be, is looking at their design specs and drawing it up and then having the fabricator make it.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. I love it. So where was I? Oh yeah. So besides the TEDs, were there any other challenges with this project?
Yeah, the density of the information and getting everything, taking the scientific thoughts and scientific ideas and converting them into something that normal people who are not scientists necessarily would understand and would be able to comprehend. That was a challenge, but Sarah did an excellent job of translating.
Oh, thank you. It's funny. I was just about to say the exact same thing in terms of being a challenge. I mean, there's so many different projects, and I think, when we think about like all of the things we considered including, I mean, this is just a tiny part of what was even floated as ideas. I mean, there are a lot of things that had to be on the chopping block just because, we only have X amount of space and X amount of attention span from people.
This is true.
Yeah, I think creating the continuity and the through line, is always a big part of any exhibit. And, Sarah was really masterful at that, and, the chopping block, of course. So I would, the editing and finding the right imagery, working with the, sometimes smaller resolution images, but then, how do we get them to work in a large scale format, managing proofing and the revision process when things were laid out. It also, we had to make sure that all the eyes saw it multiple times. And then the other thing was there was a moving target in term because of COVID. This was supposed to install in January. And it got pushed to, the final installation was completed in May.
June.
End of May, 1st of
Mhm.
June. Yeah, so that was something that was,
For which we were grateful.
we actually, the universe was kind of on our side because, yeah, it would have been tough to meet that first deadline.
Mhm.
Yeah, but the other side of that was I was so afraid that it would close and no one would ever see this, that we'd put all this work into it and then, you know, it'd be shut the whole time. And thankfully it's open and people are actually visiting it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and they extended the original, it was supposed to be just for the year, the calendar year, essentially. And when we knew that there were going to be all these, you know, starts and stops as far as people seeing it, they moved it through the end of June.
The library has been amazing, an amazing partner to work with on this project.
Wow.
They provided monitors, they provided technical people to help us, they provided people to help us install. They did all the lighting, tuning. They were just amazing partners on this exhibit.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's show the viewers some more of our videos so they can kind of be envisioning. Here's the seafood. Wait, can y'all tell me about what was this? What can y'all tell me about this one?
Sarah, these came from Bobby in Austin, Texas. He's in charge of marketing Texas Shrimp, and Bobby Champion, and he has a graphic artist design these posters, and Sarah Beth went to his warehouse and got them.
These are awesome.
They're original images that he had, I think, for the Texas State Fair.
I love it. And then here, the next video. Whoops. Come on, go. There we go. Let's see. What do we have here? Oh, I loved this one. Texas Signature Marine and Terrestrial. Now, this is an interactive exhibit, correct?
Yes, and this is one of the many interactive elements of the exhibit. And there are some sections of our exhibit. I mean, obviously a lot of it's focused on our history, but we do have quite a bit that is just generally about the Texas coast and teaching people about the resources and the wildlife and stuff like that that is on the Texas coast. And so this is one of the really cool elements where you can sort of flip up those different tabs and then read more about those different creatures.
So cool. And
Yeah.
then, sorry, go ahead.
No, the low-tech interactives, which run throughout the exhibit, that's another thing that Benny and his team worked on with us. And Mariana had, you know, she would draw them up and they would take it from there and they do shop drawings and then they give those to me and I design the layout and the graphics for it. And that's another thing that, you know, there are precedents for some of these things, but again, they're all different. And that one that you were just looking at, you know, we thinking of being safe throughout the pandemic, that little notch at the bottom is where all the visitors have a pencil with the eraser on the end, and they can use that instead of touching things. So that was another kind of element that came into play that we hadn't, you know, necessarily had to deal with before.
It was very unknown. This is right at the very beginning of the pandemic as we were working on this. So that was when nobody knew what. So we were trying very hard to figure out a way so everything could be touch free and or made of materials robust enough to be cleaned with alcohol.
Wow, that is so interesting. I did not realize that. Very cool. And here we have these were beautiful designs, by the way.
Oh, those started off as little selfie frames. We were going to have people stand behind a selfie frame and take a picture of themselves with stuff around it. And it simplified itself out into selfie spots versus frames.
I love that.
And those play into, I don't know if you have a photo of the make and take, where folks can either leave an idea or take
Yes.
an idea for how they can have an impact on.
This one?
Yeah, there you go. The change I will make and the change I will take. So just
Fun.
ideas in terms of how they can have an impact on, you know, being a citizen science. I mean, you can see what they are, ways to help sea turtles, et cetera. And then the other one is they can leave ideas.
Yes, that one is on. Let me figure out what page that's. Aha, yes, I see now. Page 27. This part is amazing.
And I was reading through some of those when I saw this image. It sounds like people are really taking advantage and leaving some. What do you think of that, Sarah? How's that been?
So this has been my absolute favorite part of the exhibit. And this was one that when we were creating it, I mean, honestly, initially it was kind of an afterthought for me just because I wasn't working so heavily on this. I became so focused on the history and I didn't really, I was like, oh yeah, that'll be cool. And I'll think about it later. And then when it came to life, I was like, wow, this is incredible. And it quickly became my favorite part. And, you know, I was a little afraid at first that people were going to write a bunch of silly answers. And I mean, there are the occasional silly answers, but there are so many that are just so well thought out and so, you know, spoken from the heart that you can tell that people have, you know, taken something from this exhibit. And actually there's one that I took a picture of last time I want to read to y'all that I don't think you have, Chloe. So this one is from Bonnie, and she says, I will buy products supporting small business, eco-friendly products instead of large companies. And actually, let's see, the other one I was looking for was from Sammy. This is incredible. I will make a difference in the world by encouraging others to take time to notice that sea animals are living creatures like us. We will have to do our best to protect them. I mean, that was just something that was just obviously so well thought out. And I love that people are leaving behind those ideas.
That's beautiful. Oh my gosh.
I love seeing the children's handwriting.
Mm-hmm.
That's, yeah, these are awesome.
So cute. There was one Sarah told me about. It was it was the shark one. A kid was like, I will be nice to sharks even though I'm a little scared. Something like that.
Yes.
So cute.
Oh, that's
So stinking cute. We also have another picture of this exhibit like y'all were talking about. I didn't realize we had this one. So I'm just gonna keep on going. Then we can get back to the questions. We saw that. Oh yeah, and then the designing process, very cool.
So this came about because Dr. Plotkin showed me that she had bags of junk found, plastics and et cetera, found in sea turtle stomachs. And I thought, well, let's celebrate these by putting them into little jewel boxes. So that's what the little blue boxes you're seeing are, small little plexiglass boxes. And then we had the film of Dr. Figner pulling the straw out of the turtle's nostril. And I thought these would make a very impactful messages for people to see and understand that they should not pollute. And so that's how that came about.
Oh, I love it.
And I love the name of it. It's I Hate Your Guts.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And this one's the TEDs, as like y'all were talking about. It does look very complicated. This must have been such a challenge. Oh my gosh. Very cool though. And what else do we have? Oh, the shrimp. Tell us about the shrimp, because these are such a big part of it. It's like the first thing I noticed.
I installed an exhibit many years ago at the Texas State Fair, and Big Tex was there, and Big Tex's head wasn't on his body yet. So I have a funny picture of me standing next to him, and I was thinking everything's bigger in Texas. What about jumbo shrimp? And so that's why I thought it'd be so fun to do some giant shrimp as a gateway to the area that's uniquely Texas. And because we wanted to really celebrate the Texas uniqueness on the coast. It shares a coast with the other states, but Texas coast is very unique in so many different ways. And so we have one brown shrimp and one white shrimp, so we can tell the stories about the differences between them and where they're caught and all of that.
That's awesome. I think we have a close-up video of the shrimp. So let's see here if it'll load.
And the fabricator was challenged in making it.
Really?
Well, it's not every day you make a shrimp that's 8 feet tall.
Oh, that is true. I love the shrimp.
Great
Oh
job of coloring it or painting it, and that was Beth's significance in checking out their paint colors or approving their paint colors, and also in making sure these things, which are tall, are also stable so that they don't fall over. That was the engineering that was done by the fabricator.
It's amazing. We have a kind of a far away picture of it here. Oh yeah, and tell us about this exhibit. This was so cool. This part of the exhibit, I mean.
So Beth and I visited NOAA, the Flower Garden Bank's National Marine Sanctuary office in Galveston, and had a look at the artifacts. And these were actual artifacts or actual things that were used on the first several voyages that discovered the Flower Garden Bank's coral reef system that's not too far off the Texas coast.
Wow. That is so cool.
It's a camera housing and the box that housed the housing and the air tank.
And then to the left of that is a book, that flip book right there that has some of the original photos from those early dives. So, and then I think at the very end of it, there's a picture of George Bush, so we have a few little George Bush because he was very involved in
the environment.
Exactly.
Yes. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think this is such a great point, because this in particular, the Flower Garden Banks, is something that I think a lot of people don't realize that we have in our own backyard, and that it's so close to Texas, and that Texas Sea Grant actually had a connection to that. We helped with offering some office space for the Flower Garden Banks in their first year of operation. And we also, one of our former directors was very involved in the research at the time. And we've got some pictures of him as well in that little booklet, Dr. Tom Bright. And he's even got one of the banks named after him, Bright Bank. And so it's really cool to see the wonders so close to home.
Absolutely.
So in researching this, I pulled, my husband's a fisheries biologist, and so I know a lot of fish people. So I pulled a couple of fish people here to ask them, I forget, it was something particular about diving. Oh, diving in those days. And tell me about what they were wearing and why, because these are old G's. And there was a three-way conversation between Dr. Bright and Walt Japp here and Pam Muller here, who's an oceanographer, about their dives and what they wore and stuff. And then Dr. Japp died recently, and I was so glad to have been able to facilitate those old memories and conversations between them. And they all know each other across the Gulf, which is cool. And yeah, yes, they were wearing jeans.
That is so fun. Do y'all have any funny stories about the creation of this exhibit? Anything that jumps out?
Beth?
Well, the TED story, like installing the TED was one that I thought was really funny. And another one was I went to go look at the giant shrimp before, like at Benny's shop in Little Elm. And I took some early photos of them, and I sent them to Mariana. And she was so excited that she got to see, part of that process. And then when they unveiled them, I have a video of Mariana literally like jumping up and down and dancing, which was pretty awesome. Yeah, we were pretty excited about these shrimp.
They're awesome.
They are. I really, it's one of my favorite things. The only thing I regret is that they were unable to articulate the antenna and have them moving around. Really kind of wanted that, but we'll take what we can get.
Yeah, there was something about y'all sent me an early image and it was almost like a bit of an optical illusion because of like the way that in that picture it was like against the wall and it made the shrimp look a lot smaller than it was. And then I saw like the next photo showing like how big it would be and I was like, whoa, that is enormous and way bigger than I ever imagined. And I think that's like the reaction that I get from everybody is that they're just larger than life.
Yeah, they had some prototypes of them that they had originally that were, probably 6 inches tall or whatever. And then they worked out so the artists that painted these, there's airbrushing, there's so much shadow and light that goes into it to really, give it that dimensionality when, it's 2.5D. They're not, completely filled out in 3 dimension, but they're just so beautiful and so fun.
And they cut these with the CNC router. It was a computerized router that they used on a flatbed, I believe.
Wow. So would y'all say that the shrimp is your favorite part of the exhibit, or do you have some other parts? I know Sarah loves the wall of the cards. Do y'all have any other favorites?
The shrimp, I think, is my favorite just for its wow factor.
Mm-hmm.
I have some personal favorites just as a graphic designer. The color and the typography I'm really proud of. Like to make Helvetica look this sexy, I think I'm kind of proud of because it's 99% Helvetica. So yeah, that for me was a personal challenge.
And we were restricted and forbidden and absolutely will not. You may not use Times New Roman. Dr. Plotkin said, I am sick and tired of seeing that font in all the scientific papers. You will not use it.
And I totally supported that.
One of my other favorites is a recipe card box.
Oh, let me pull that up. We definitely have a picture of those.
One of the Sea Grant initiatives is to get people to eat more seafood. And how do you get people to eat more seafood is by showing them great recipes. And so there was Sarah, will you tell the story of the Annette?
Yes. So back in the day, we had someone who's her name is Annette Hegan-Rydell, and she was our, I'm trying to remember her exact title, consumer education specialist, I believe. But essentially, she was in charge of developing these recipes that made it easy and approachable to actually cook with seafood. And so we had these recipe boxes that were from her days here testing recipes and developing recipes, which, would have been in the 70s, 80s. And I think she was here till the 90s, and those contained a lot of her recipes, and many of the recipes there were a lot of great ones we'd still use today, and then there were some that were very dated that were probably popular then. I don't know that we would have them now. Lots of Jell-O. But
you have a picture of that one?
Yeah, to me, that was such a fun piece because it's something that we still do today. We still have many extension staff who help with recipes and teaching people how to cook with seafood, because some people can be intimidated by it. And, we want people to use local Gulf and Texas seafood.
And we wanted people to have the recipe card experience of being able to pull a recipe card out, but don't take it away. So we figured out a way to capture these recipes that are printed on plastic material, styrene, I think. And so you can lift them up and look at them, but not take them away. So that was the design of this box. And this is exact same dimensions as a recipe box that you have. And then the other thing is working with Walter to do the IDEUM table interactive. He was Walter Peacock, right?
Yes.
He was so helpful in doing the programming and everything, so that people can get a sense of what it's like, what your program does to model Texas communities.
Yeah, that was for our charm table that we used to help communities, assess different risks and become more resilient. And he basically made these videos showing how to use these. And that was quite a challenge because that is not something that's very easily modeled within a few minutes. And so I think we gave him the very challenging task of trying to explain this technology within a minute or so. And he did an excellent job, I think.
Yeah. Yes. Everybody stepped up.
One other piece that I really love is the fish guts. That's an interactive.
Oh,
If you have an image of that, Chloe, we engaged the same artist that works on the illustrations that we saw earlier on those kind of retro posters. His name's Eric Cash, and he developed the interior illustration that we built into a, it has 3 flip doors that you lift. And so you can see the exterior of the fish and the guts on the inside. And
yes. I found
I
it.
can imagine that the kids really like that one too, because
Mhm.
it's fun and, you know,
And
gross.
we kind of wanted the ick factor. So you don't know what a fish guts looks like, but you lift it up and there's guts.
Mhm. Very cool. Let's see here. I'm trying to see. Oh, I didn't show this, but we do have the blueprint. I don't know if you call it blueprints, but the plan for the shrimp. And I did not catch that there were 2 different shrimp species. So that's really cool. Very, very cool.
Wherever you can make learning happen and however you can make learning happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's nothing in this exhibit that doesn't serve some sort of purpose. I think everything has thought behind it and is with the goal of teaching.
Absolutely. So what is the big takeaway that you want the museum guests to have after visiting this exhibit?
I think it's to understand the contribution that Texas Sea Grant has made to the health of Texas coast, and also to understand that they, as a citizen, have a responsibility to also take these steps that are presented in the exhibit.
Yeah, I would just say the same, like we all have a responsibility, and no matter how small the steps you might take, you know, just to make change in your habits, make a difference.
That is amazing.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think, you know, showcasing the history and then showcasing how you as a person who is on the coast or maybe even not on the coast, downstream or upstream of the coast, can help be a steward of our natural resources.
Oh, I love it. Our last slide. Oh yeah, this is it. Thank you guys so much for watching. So Sarah, can you tell our viewers how they can see this exhibit and how much longer it will be available? And then while she's saying that, our audience, if y'all have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box and I can read them to our presenter, our guest speakers. But yeah, Sarah, take it away.
Yeah, so the best way to get tickets is to go to bush41.org, I believe. It's the Bush Library's website. You will need to purchase tickets ahead of time just because they are doing timed exhibits right now and monitoring, you know, how people are moving through just as some health precautions. But yeah, you can see it until July 5th. It'll be on display. So I hope that you all go out and see it and cherish it. I've seen it a few times and I love it more and more each time. So I hope you all go take a look.
I love it. While we give our people some time to write questions, I want y'all to we love this picture so much. So can y'all tell us more about why this is y'all's favorite picture and why y'all requested it to be in?
Well, this is a ta-da moment, but another ta-da moment was just before this, when Sarah, who had worked on this project for over a year and a half, she did not want to see it until it was pretty much finished. And so she covered her eyes and walked to the doorway. And I'm going to tear up thinking about this, covered her eyes and walked to the doorway and revealed, and she was just blown away. And I love that. That's my favorite moment.
I think that is mine too. I mean, it was just For me, a lot of times when I looked at this, it was a Word document and it was, maybe some PDFs that we sent back and forth. And so when I saw it, it felt real and I knew that it was something that we were going to share with people. And this is, there was a lot of work that was put into this, but it was so beautiful and I'll never forget that moment.
It's a gorgeous exhibit and y'all did an amazing job. And I hope our watchers will go see it, because I love it. The colors are gorgeous, the fonts are gorgeous, everything is just perfect, and y'all did an amazing job.
Thank you, Chloe.
Well, I don't think we have any questions so far, so I guess that concludes our Seaside chat. Thank you so much to all of our audience members, and thank you so much to our speakers. It was such a pleasure getting to meet y'all and learn about this amazing exhibit. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of your Friday.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Sarah,
Thank
good-
you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.